Hello students, today we will see about the anticholinergic drugs. So what should the students know about the anticholinergic drugs is that describe the kinetics of muscarinic antagonist, the effects of atropine on major organ system, to list the clinical uses of muscarinic antagonist, know the adverse effects and contraindication of anticholinergic drugs, to identify at least one anti-muscarinic agent for each of the following conditions like mydriasis, cycloplegia, peptic ulcer and Parkinsonism. Now what do you mean by the anticholinergic drugs? Drugs blocking the effect of acetylcholine on the cholinergic receptors are known as the anticholinergics. So these drugs, they block the effect of acetylcholine on the cholinergic receptors. So these are the cholinergic receptor blockers, and that's why they are known as anticholinergics. Conventionally they are known as anti-muscarinic because they block the effect of acetylcholine on the muscarinic receptors. They are also known as parasympatholytics. Drugs blocking the nicotinic receptors are known as neuromuscular blockers or ganglion blockers. Now coming to the classification of the anti-muscarinic drugs, they are classified as natural alkaloids, semi-synthetic derivatives and synthetic compounds. Natural alkaloids are the atropine, hyoscine. Hyoscine is also known as scopolamine. Semi-synthetic derivatives are the atropine methonitrate, homatropine, hyoscine butyl bromide, ipratropium bromide and tiotropium bromide. Synthetic compounds are the mydriatics, vasoselective and the anti-Parkinsonian and anti-secretory, antispasmodic. Mydriatics are the cyclopentolate, tropicamide. Vasoselective are the oxybutynin, tolterodine, flavoxate, darifenacin. Anti-Parkinsonian are the triphenydyl, procyclidine, piperidine, benztropine. Anti-secretory, antispasmodics are the propanthyline, oxyphenonium, clindium, glycopyrrolate. Tertiary amines are the dicyclomine, parenzepine. So all these are the anti-muscarinic drugs and they are classified into natural and semi-synthetic and synthetic compounds. This slide also shows the classification of the anticholinergic drugs or the parasympatholytics. In this slide also I have mentioned the classification. Natural alkaloids is the atropine, hyoscine. Semi-synthetic derivatives are the homatropine, ipratropium, tiotropium. Synthetic substitutes are the mydriatics. These are the cyclopentolate, tropicamide. Antispasmodics are the dicyclomine, hyoscine butyl bromide. Anti-Parkinsonian are the benzhexol, benztropine. Vasoselective are the oxybutynin, tolterodine. Then this is the clinical classification. They are divided into the classified clinically depending on the action as mydriatic and cycloplegic. These are the homatropine, cyclopentolate, tropicamide. Then the anti-secretory are the atropine, glycopyrrolate. Antispasmodic are the dicyclomine, atropine methonitrate. Anti-ulcer are the parenzepine, telenzepine. Bronchodilators are the ipratropium, tiotropium. Anti-motion sickness is the hyoscine. Cardiac vagolytic is the atropine. Anti-Parkinsonian agents are the triphenydyl and the benztropine. Then coming to the sources of these drugs, atropine and hyoscine, which is scopolamine, are the belladonna alkaloids, while all other drugs are the synthetic and the semi-synthetic derivatives of atropine. Atropine is obtained from the deadly nightshade Atropa belladonna, also known as devil's herb. Also atropine is found in the Datura stramonium, that is thorn apple. Hyoscine is obtained from Hyoscyamus niger. Coming to the mechanism of action of these drugs, They are competitive antagonists of the acetylcholine at the muscarinic receptors. So they compete with acetylcholine for the muscarinic receptors and block these receptors. Competition with acetylcholine to bind to the muscarinic receptor, and they bind to the muscarinic receptor and block these receptors. That's why they are known as muscarinic antagonists. These are competitive antagonists, and antagonism is reversible by increasing the concentration of agonist, that is the acetylcholine. That's why the name competitive antagonism. It is reversible. Atropine and scopolamine are non-selective blockers, and they block all the subtypes of M1 to M5 muscarinic receptors. So they are known as non-selective blockers. This slide shows the mechanism of action of anticholinergic drugs. In this slide you can see the muscarinic receptor, and by atropine shifts the acetylcholine and gets bind to the muscarinic receptor, even scopolamine. So they compete with acetylcholine and they bind to the muscarinic receptor and they block this receptor. It is a competitive antagonism. That's why if you increase the concentration of acetylcholine, the block will be reversed. Block will be reversed by increasing the concentration of the agonist, that is acetylcholine. So anticholinergic are the class of drugs that block the neurotransmitter acetylcholine in the central nervous system as well as peripheral nervous system. These drugs they combine reversibly with the muscarinic cholinergic receptors, thus preventing the access of the neurotransmitter acetylcholine in these sites. So the anticholinergic drugs combine reversibly with the muscarinic cholinergic receptors, thus preventing access of the neurotransmitter acetylcholine in these sites. Pharmacological actions of atropine and anticholinergic drugs. Cardiovascular system. So you can see that there is tachycardia with the atropine because of blockade of the M2 receptors in the SA node. M2 receptors are inhibitory receptors and stimulation causes bradycardia, but due to blockade with atropine there is tachycardia. Tachycardia is preceded by transient bradycardia, and this is due to stimulation of the M1 autoreceptors. This action is seen at the therapeutic doses. Now this action is more marked in the young patients because of high vagal tone. In elderly and in infants the tachycardia is not very prominent because of low vagal tone. Next action is atropine flush, which is due to the vasodilation of the cutaneous blood vessels of the face and the neck area, and this is seen at large doses. This action, that is atropine flush, is seen at large doses due to vasodilation of the cutaneous blood vessels. No significant action is seen on the blood pressure at therapeutic doses. Action on the secretions, exocrine gland secretions are decreased. All the exocrine gland secretions are decreased except milk. So they are decreased by blocking the M3 receptors on the exocrine gland, and these secretions are the lacrimal secretion, salivary secretion, nasopharyngeal secretion, tracheobronchial secretion, and secretion from the sweat glands also. So the symptoms are due to the blocking of the secretion is dry eyes, dry mouth, and increased body temperature seen at high doses, and this is seen due to reduced secretion. All these actions you can see due to reduced secretions from the exocrine gland. Gastric secretion also reduced. Acid, pepsin and mucus is reduced. Effect on gastric secretion is mediated through the M1 receptors. Now coming to the action on the smooth muscles. On the gastrointestinal tract, atropine blocks M3 receptors on the smooth muscles, hence reduces tone and motility. It is pericytic activity is reduced. Reduces spasm and tone of the intestine, and this action is called antispasmodic action. Tone amplitude of smooth muscles of the stomach and intestine is decreased or reduced, resulting in delayed gastric emptying time and constipation. Anticholinergic drugs can be very useful where there is increased gastrointestinal activity and spasmodic pain. Then action on the biliary tract, smooth muscles are relaxed. Biliary spasm is relieved by blocking the M3 receptors. On the bronchi, there is bronchodilation due to blockade of the M3 receptors on the bronchial smooth muscle. So all these actions are due to blockade of the M3 receptors. Action on the urinary tract, atropine reduces tone, amplitude and contraction of the ureters and the bladder wall by blocking the M3 receptors. This leads to urinary retention in the elderly male. So this action leads to the urinary retention in the elderly male because of reduction in the tone, amplitude and contraction of the ureters and the bladder wall by blocking the M3 receptors. Action on the eye. Atropine causes mydriasis, cycloplegia and loss of light reflex. Now mydriasis occurs because of blocking of the M3 receptors on the sphincter pupillae. Due to blocking of the M3 receptors on the sphincter pupillae, sphincter pupillae gets relaxed, resulting in passive mydriasis. So the type of mydriasis is passive. Cycloplegia is also known as paralysis of accommodation, and this is due to ciliary muscle due to paralysis of the ciliary muscle. Ciliary muscle gets paralyzed, resulting in loss of accommodation reflex, that is eye cannot focus for the near vision and it is fixed for the distant vision. So there is blurring of the vision. There is also loss of light reflex because of blockade of the M3 receptors on the sphincter pupillae. Reflex pupillary constriction in response to the light gets blocked, because when light is thrown on the eye, there is constriction of the sphincter pupillae. So this is blocked. Cholinergic innervation to the sphincter pupillae is by the oculomotor nerve. M3 receptors are blocked, which are located on the sphincter pupillae and the ciliary muscles. Intraocular pressure is increased due to blockade of the drainage of aqueous humor. So there is crowding of the ciliary muscle and the iris at the canal of Schlemm, and hence drainage of aqueous humor is blocked, and hence there is a rise in the intraocular pressure. Action on the CNS. Atropine causes CNS stimulation, resulting in restlessness, disorientation, hallucination, delirium, followed by CNS depression. So this slide shows the various actions of the anticholinergic drugs, anticholinergic effects: urinary retention, dry throat, dry mouth, constipation. Decreased sweating causes increase in the body temperature, patient feels hot, tachycardia is there, blood vision, dry eyes will be there, and sedation, dizziness, confusion and hallucinations will be there. So in this slide also you can see that blood vision in the eyes, dry mouth, constipation, skin flushing, unable to sweat, overheating, urinary retention, unable to empty the bladder, rapid heart rate, tachycardia, and drowsiness, dizziness, confusion and hallucinations. So this slide shows pharmacological action of the atropine on the eye. So you can see that the mydriasis is there. Topical atropine and other antimuscarinic drug result in unopposed sympathetic dilator activity and mydriasis. So the mydriasis is passive, means what? The constriction is blocked, that is the action of the sphincter pupillae on the eye is blocked, that is the contraction of the sphincter pupillae is blocked because of blocking of the M3 receptors, and so there is an unopposed sympathetic activity. Sympathetic supply causes contraction of the dilator pupillae or the radial muscles in the iris, and so that will lead to dilatation of the pupil, that is known as mydriasis. So unopposed sympathetic dilator activity is seen, and hence there is a mydriasis. Cycloplegia and abolition of light reflex is seen, which is desirable in ophthalmology. Cycloplegia means loss of accommodation reflex, eye is fixed for distant vision, patient cannot see the near objects, so there is a blurring of the vision. Abolition of light reflex will be there, leading to photophobia and blurring of the near vision. Intraocular pressure rises, and that can be hazardous in narrow angle glaucoma because there is a obstruction to the drainage of the aqueous humor. Even the dry eyes are not desirable. So you can see in this slide that in the diagram there is a supply. Long ciliary nerve is a sympathetic nerve and short ciliary nerve is a parasympathetic nerve. So there is a sympathetic supply by the long ciliary nerve, and that supplies to the dilator pupillae, while parasympathetic supply to the sphincter pupillae. Contraction of the dilator pupillae causes mydriasis. Relaxation of sphincter pupillae causes mydriasis. So relaxation is brought about by antimuscarinic drugs, and contraction of the dilator pupillae is brought about by the alpha 1 agonist. Then here in the C diagram you can see that contraction of sphincter pupillae is brought about by the cholinergic drug, that is muscarinic agonist and anticholinesterases, while relaxation of the dilator pupillae is brought about by the alpha 1 blockers, leading to meiosis. So meiosis and mydriasis is nicely explained in this slide. So same diagram. So the autonomic control of pupil A. So in this A diagram you can see autonomic control of the pupil in diagram A. There is a autonomic control, and site of action of mydriatics in diagram B, and miotics in diagram C is seen. Topical instillation of the atropine, that is 0.1% causes topical instillation of the atropine causes mydriasis, abolition of light reflex and cycloplegia. It lasts for 7 to 10 days. This results in photophobia and blurring of the near vision. Intraocular tension rises, especially in the narrow angle glaucoma. This is seen in the narrow angle glaucoma, where the intraocular tension rises in the narrow angle glaucoma. Now coming to the adverse reactions of the, so we have finished with the pharmacological actions of the atropine. Now coming to the adverse reactions of the anticholinergic drugs. So blurring of vision is there, dry mouth, difficulty in talking, difficulty in swallowing, dry skin, dry eyes will be there, atropine fever especially in children, constipation, urinary retention. So these are nothing but extension of pharmacological actions. Atropine poisoning can occur, that is also known as belladonna poisoning or datura poisoning, and this is seen with the overdose of atropine or consumption of the datura seeds, that can lead to the poisoning. So the symptoms of the poisoning are hyperthermia, palpitations, flushing, restlessness, delirium, hallucinations, psychosis, convulsions and coma. So all these are the extension of the pharmacological actions. Patient becomes red as a beet because of the cutaneous vasodilation, hot as a hair because of high fever, dry as a bone due to blockade of sweating and blockade of the various secretions, mad as a wet hen due to blockade of the muscarinic receptors in the CNS, and blind as a bat because of the pupillary dilation and the cycloplegia, loss of accommodation. So he cannot see the near object, so blind as a bat. So it is described in this way: red as a beet, hot as a hair, dry as a bone, mad as a wet hen, blind as a bat. Death occurs because of severe circulatory collapse and respiratory failure. Now what is the treatment of atropine poisoning or the datura poisoning? Treatment is symptomatic. Gastric lavage should be done. Hyperthermia treated by the cold sponging. Airway, breathing and circulation should be well maintained, and patient should be admitted in the ICU. Antidote is the physostigmine. So specific antidote is the physostigmine. Dose is 1 to 3 milligrams, low IV. Should be given slowly intravenously, repeated after 1 hour or 2 hours, and this can reverse central and peripheral effects because of the competitive antagonism. So we are preferring physostigmine because it is an antagonist of the atropine, so and it antagonizes both central and the peripheral effects because it crosses blood-brain barrier. So physostigmine is a tertiary amine. It crosses the blood-brain barrier and enters the CNS, while neostigmine cannot be used because it is a quaternary amine and it cannot antagonize the central actions. That's why we are not using neostigmine, but we are preferring physostigmine over neostigmine. So this question is commonly asked in the exam. Explain why physostigmine is preferred in treatment of the datura poisoning or the atropine poisoning, and diazepam is given for the convulsions. So why physostigmine is used? Because we are giving the specific antidote and it increases the concentration of the acetylcholine because it is a reversible anticholinesterase drug. So we are applying the mechanism of competitive antagonism over here. So this diagram shows the side effects of the anticholinergic drug, that is dry mouth, constipation, urinary retention, confusion. So the side effects are the blood vision, dry mouth, constipation, urinary retention, confusion and tachycardia. Now drugs with anticholinergic side effects, these are the antispasmodic, atropine, hyoscine, dicyclomine, propantheline. Then antidepressant, that is the tricyclic antidepressants also have these anticholinergic adverse effects, amitriptyline and imipramine. Then anti-Parkinsonian drugs like that is benztropine, procyclidine, antipsychotic agent like chlorpromazine, flufenazine, olanzapine, quetiapine. Then first generation antihistaminics like chlorpheniramine maleate, promethazine, hydroxyzine and even loratadine. Then other drugs like oxybutynin, antiemetic drug like metoclopramide, chlorperazine, cyclizine. So all these drugs are having anticholinergic action. So all these drugs are having the anticholinergic action, and hence you should know this, which drugs produce the anticholinergic adverse effect, because all these drugs are very commonly used. And this also diagram you keep in mind about the side effects of the anticholinergic drug like constipation, dry mouth and the urinary retention. Now coming to the contraindications of the atropine and the anticholinergic drugs, acute congestive glaucoma. Acute congestive glaucoma is an important contraindication for the anticholinergic drugs. Persons with narrow angle glaucoma should not be given these drugs because glaucoma may be precipitated. Then benign hypertrophy of the prostate, atropine may cause urinary retention, should not be given. Elderly patients with dementia, so in these patients also you should not give the anticholinergic drugs. Then drug interactions. Coming to the drug interaction, first is with the tricyclic antidepressant. Just now we have seen antipsychotics and antihistaminics having anticholinergic actions. They should not be combined with atropine or atropine-like drugs. Then second, anticholinergic drugs reduce the gastric emptying time and gut motility. So absorption of other drugs administered with the anticholinergic drugs are reduced. So they should not be given with the other drugs. Coming to the therapeutic uses now. Atropine has a non-selective action. It blocks all the muscarinic receptors. So not preferred agent when specific action is required. Now what are the uses of atropine as such? Pre-anesthetic medication. Atropine is a preferred drug due to its cardiac vagolytic action. So we are using atropine because it is preferred drug due to its cardiac vagolytic action in the pre-anesthetic medication. Also it prevents bradycardia or cardiac arrest, that is vasovagal attack, during induction of the anesthesia and maintenance of the anesthesia. It also blocks the salivary and bronchial secretions which are increased by irritant anesthetics like the ether, and thus prevent laryngospasm, bronchospasm and aspiration pneumonia. So this is the rationale why we are giving the atropine as a pre-anesthetic medication. This question is also commonly asked. It is administered 30 minutes before the induction Also used perioperatively during surgery to prevent vasovagal attack which occurs because of handling of the visceral organs innervated by the vagus. So this is preoperative and perioperative administration of the atropine. Very important action of atropine, commonly used everywhere. You should know this. Dose is 0.6 milligram can be given intramuscularly as well as or intravenously. So any IM or IV, 0.6 milligram is the dose. Then second use of atropine is organophosphorus poisoning. Atropine is a drug of choice. It is life saving in this condition. Injection atropine is given 2 milligram IV every 10 minutes till pupil dilates or the signs of atropinization occur. Now why we are giving atropine? Because it blocks all the muscarinic receptors and reverses all the symptoms and signs of organophosphorus poisoning. It is a competitive antagonist of the muscarinic receptors and hence it will reverse all the symptoms and signs of organophosphorus compound poisoning. Then what are the signs of atropinization? Yes, signs of atropinization are the tachycardia, then drying of the secretions and dilated pupil. So you should look for these three things, that is the tachycardia, pulse rate becomes high and there should be pupillary dilatation, mydriasis should be there. So these are the signs, important signs of the atropinization. Till that time you have to administer atropine. So sometimes some patients require 100 milligrams of atropine depending on the amount of the poison consumed. So depending on the amount of poison consumed, you have to administer that atropine to the patient. Injection atropine should be administered to the patient till there are the signs of the atropinization like dilatation of the pupil or the tachycardia. Then second use is in mushroom poisoning. In mushroom poisoning, it is also a muscarinic type of poisoning. There are cholinergic symptoms, so atropine is used as a specific treatment to reverse the muscarinic effects. Curare poisoning. Atropine is used along with the neostigmine in this condition, that is the D-tubocurarine poisoning. So here you can give the atropine to block the muscarinic side effects of the neostigmine. So here in D-tubocurarine poisoning, neostigmine is the antidote, but we are combining atropine along with the neostigmine to block the muscarinic side effects of the neostigmine. Then ophthalmic uses as mydriatic and cycloplegic. Now atropine has delayed onset of action and long lasting action of around 7 to 10 days. So it is not preferred for diagnostic procedures, fundoscopic examination. It is preferred only for refraction testing in children because of good cycloplegic action and to give the rest to the eye and to relieve the painful spasm. So rest to the eye is required in certain inflammatory conditions of the eye and to relieve the painful spasm. Now this painful spasm occurs in iritis, iridocyclitis, keratitis and after iridectomy. So in these conditions you need to give the rest to the eye, and so that time you have to administer the atropine to the topically to the patient. Alternatively, with miotics it can be used to break the adhesion between the iris and the lens in uveitis and iritis. So here the atropine substitutes are preferred over the atropine to break the adhesion between the iris and the lens in uveitis and iritis. You can give the atropine substitutes are preferred over atropine where they are used with the alternatively with the miotics. So now let us see about the atropine substitutes. Why are atropine substitutes discovered? Because atropine produces wide range of action. It has non-selective action and that's why there are a lot of side effects. Hence lot of semi-synthetic and synthetic derivatives have been developed which have selective action. Now let us see one by one those which are used in the eye, atropine substitutes in the eye. So atropine produces the mydriasis and cycloplegia lasting for 7 to 10 days. So we have selective atropine substitutes used in the eye. These are tropicamide, homatropine and cyclopentolate. They have short duration of action. They all are short acting and have selective action only on the eye. They don't have widespread action. Tropicamide is the shortest acting agent and preferred for fundoscopic examination. Cyclopentolate is preferred for refraction testing due to good cycloplegic action. So cyclopentolate has additional good cycloplegic action, that's why it is preferred for refraction testing. Also used alternatively with the mydriatics and myotics to break the adhesions between iris and the lens or iris and the cornea. So these are the mydriatics and they are used alternatively with the myotics to break the adhesions between iris and the lens and iris and the cornea in various conditions like iritis, iridocyclitis, keratitis, etc. Now coming to the use of atropine substitutes as antispasmodics. Now these drugs have selective action on the smooth muscles of the GIT, that is gastrointestinal tract, and the urinary bladder. Propantheline dicyclomine, pipenzolate, they are used for the colicky pain, for abdominal and ureteric pain, and as well as for spasm, intestinal spasm or the ureteric spasm, colicky pain. For urinary problems also they are used for overactive bladder. So these are the various antispasmodic, that is propantheline dicyclomine, pipenzolate. They are used for the colicky pain, that is abdominal pain and ureteric pain, and to relieve the spasms. Now for the urinary problems in overactive bladder, you can use tolterodine, oxybutynin, flavoxate, dariphenacin. They selectively block the M3 receptors on the bladder. They reduce the intravesicular pressure, increase the bladder capacity and reduce the frequency of contraction. So in overactive bladder there is increased frequency of micturition and there is a increased urgency of micturition. So all these are reduced by reducing the intravesicular pressure and increasing the bladder capacity. Reduce nocturnal enuresis, that is bedwetting is reduced. Reduces urinary frequency in case of neurogenic bladder. So the urinary frequency and urinary urgency is reduced by giving rest to the bladder. Then atropine substitutes for the peptic ulcer. So here we have M1 blocker, selective M1 blocker, that is pyrenzepine and telenzepine is used. They inhibit the gastric secretion. Then for bronchial asthma and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, that is COPD. So here ipratropium bromide and tiotropium bromide are the agents available which are the atropine substitutes. They are bronchoselective with minimal effect on the bronchial secretions and mucociliary clearance. They have bronchodilator action and do not affect the mucociliary activity. They are effective for chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and the bronchial asthma. They are more effective in COPD because in COPD there is an increase in the parasympathetic tone. So that's why this is blocked by the ipratropium and tiotropium. So they have only bronchodilatory action in bronchial asthma and they do not affect the mucociliary clearance. And they have minimal effect on the bronchial secretions also. So they don't cause drying of the secretions and do not affect the mucociliary clearance. Now this action, that is drying of the bronchial secretion and decrease in the mucociliary clearance, is seen with the atropine. That's why atropine is not preferred in bronchial asthma, but atropine substitutes are preferred, because if you compare the actions, you can see that atropine has more effect on the bronchial secretion. It causes drying of the secretions and also reduces the mucociliary clearance. That's why there is a obstruction of the mucus of the bronchial tract by the mucus plugs, and that can worsen the condition of the patient. So we are not preferring atropine, but we are preferring ipratropium bromide and tiotropium bromide because they have minimal effect on the bronchial secretion and on the mucociliary clearance also. So they don't affect the ciliary activity, mucosal cilia which are present on the mucosa. That activity of the cilia is not affected. So in this slide it is shown that atropine when given in asthma, it causes thickening of the bronchial secretion due to drying and interferes with the movement of the cilia also, thus favoring formation of the mucus plug. That's why we are not using atropine, but we are using the atropine substitutes. Now for Parkinsonism, that is neuroleptic induced, that is drug induced Parkinsonism. Here also atropine substitutes are given. Here the dopamine receptors are blocked in corpus striatum, leading to relative increase in the cholinergic activity. So neuroleptic drugs, they cause the blockade of the dopamine receptors, and that's why there is a preponderance of the cholinergic activity or increase in the cholinergic activity. So levodopa cannot be used, and anticholinergic drugs have central action, they should be used to reduce the cholinergic increased cholinergic activity should be brought down to normal, and this is achieved by giving anticholinergic drugs. Here there is no role of levodopa because the concentration of dopamine is normal in the CNS. There is no deficiency of dopamine, so we are not giving levodopa, but we are giving anticholinergic drugs in drug induced Parkinsonism. These are benztropine, benzhexol and piperidine. They have high central anticholinergic action. So these drugs are preferred because they have high central anticholinergic action. They block the muscarinic receptors in the striatum. They are effective in drug induced Parkinsonism due to the central anticholinergic effect. So this is a selective action. They block the central muscarinic receptors. So they have action only in the brain. That is, they have central anticholinergic action. They do not block other muscarinic receptors at other parts of the body. They control the tremor and rigidity in Parkinsonism, and they are having modest efficacy. Then coming to the therapeutic uses of the atropine substitutes. Pre-anesthetic medication glycopyrrolate can be used apart from atropine. As a mydriatic, cyclopentolate, tropicamide and homatropine can be used. As antispasmodic, dicyclomine, propanthelin. For urinary spasm, tolterodine, flavoxate. As anti-ulcer, parenzypine, telenzypine. For the bronchial asthma and COPD, ipratropium bromide, tiotropium bromide. As anti-Parkinsonism, triaxphenidil, benztropine. Then coming to the hyoscine. Now something about the hyoscine. Hyoscine is also a natural alkaloid which is obtained from the Hyoscyamus niger. Prominent action is on the eyes and on the exocrine gland. Produces CNS depression at low doses, but stimulation at the high doses. So this is a difference in the action between hyoscine and atropine, where atropine causes stimulation but hyoscine causes CNS depression at low doses. So sedation, drowsiness, sleep can occur by the hyoscine. Amnesia is also there, that is the loss of memory will be there. Has prominent anti-motion sickness property. The action is short, given for motion sickness, and it is used 0.3 to 0.5 milligram orally or by intravascular route or by transdermal patch. So all these three routes are useful. Transdermal patch is also applied on the mastoid of the mastoid bone behind the pinna of the external, behind the pinna, that is behind the external ear. So the dose is 0.3 to 0.5 milligram. Either a tablet can be given or a transdermal patch can be applied half hour before the journey. So it is given half hour applied. The patch can also be applied half hour before the journey, or the tablet can be given half hour prior to the journey. So it is very useful for motion sickness. Why hyoscine is preferred in motion sickness? Because it has anti-motion sickness property. It controls nausea and vomiting due to the induced by the journey or motion. It has a CNS depressant action, causes sedation and drowsiness, amnesia and sleep. So patient goes to sleep and there is no no memory. So patient cannot recall the events, and patient does not get nausea and vomiting also during the journey. So this action is very useful of the hyoscine, and that's why hyoscine is preferred in motion sickness. So this question is also commonly asked, and the route of administration is also asked. So with this we have finished the lecture on the anticholinergic drugs. So in today's lecture we have seen what do you mean by anticholinergic drugs, what is the definition, what are the sources, we have seen the classification of the drugs, we have seen the sources of the atropine hyoscine, we have seen the detailed classification of the anticholinergic drugs, we have seen the mechanism of action of the anticholinergic drugs, we have seen the pharmacological actions, adverse reactions, drug interactions, contraindication, therapeutic uses, important therapeutic uses of the atropine and the atropine substitutes also, and we have seen about the hyoscine also. So I hope you have understood about the anticholinergics in detail. Thank you for your patience listening.